Good morning. My name is David Ridgway and this is Kirklees Local TV's Weekly Wind-Up. Each week we bring you a digest of all the local news in Kirklees. We aim to be interesting, amusing, challenging and provocative. But we also want to hear from you. We want to know what you know. You can always contact KLTV on info@kirkleeslocaltv.com and on Twitter @KirkleesLocalTV. Somewhat sadly, following our comments last week concerning the reduction in visitors, a council officer has been reported as commenting that museums in Kirklees may well have to close in the future. And thirdly, there is an increasing comment and advice for our older residents as to how they can keep warm this winter should the energy prices become too extortionate. Last week I told you that we would be concentrating the first part of the wind-up on the cuts facing Kirklees Council, but sadly I have to say that my special guest for that topic will not be able to be here because she is ill, and instead will be concentrating on the local effect of the bedroom tax. My special guest will be arriving a little later, but first I'd like to introduce you to Kyle Warwick.
Hello, David. Hello,
Kyle. Kyle comes from Marsden and is working with us here on the Kirklees Local TV programme. So without any more ado, Kyle, I must ask you firstly, has anything specific caught your eye over the last week in the local news?
It's coming up to the time where the council are going to be voting on the Butterley spillway in Marsden and what will be happening with Yorkshire Water's plans for that. So that's sort of something that I'm keeping in mind and keeping a lookout for in the local news.
Yeah. Did you see that Yorkshire Water have submitted amended plans?
I did see that, yeah, and having spoken to some people in the local area in Marsden and some people from the Butterley Spillway group, there's quite a lot of derision over actually the amendments that they've made and what they actually amount to.
Are you suggesting then that the interpretation of the word amendment in Yorkshire Water's dictionary is different to the rest of the world's?
It certainly seems that way, yeah. I mean, it certainly seems that way.
That certainly was my interpretation of looking at the amendment as well, but then I don't sit on the planning committee so I can make that comment. So that's good. Right, okay. And so to a number of items that's caught my eye this week. Kyle, have you read about the potential redevelopment of parts of Dewsbury Hospital?
This isn't something that I've personally read about, David, no.
Okay, well, Dewsbury Hospital has come under a lot of pressure over the last few years because it's been slowly transforming itself from an old Victorian hospital into a very modern hospital. But with all the other changes in the NHS, there's always been concern as to what its future viability will be. But what I want to ask you is, the government has been introducing new processes for funding the NHS and giving far more powers to GPs. Do you think that this is good for local Kirklees residents?
I think GPs generally are the people that connect with the general local communities on the ground. So in that respect, they will have a good knowledge on what people are coming to them and what they see as being key services within their communities. But okay, how they can have a view on a wider aspect, I'm not exactly sure how that would work on a wider distribution of funding.
Well, I guess we're both going to find out
Absolutely,
quite soon.
Yeah.
Do you think that we pay our health administrators too much in comparison to those who actually work to look after our health?
I think administrators do a difficult job in that it's sort of the bringing together, almost composing of all the different elements and making sure they're all working together. Whether or not you'd see that as being as important as actually caring for the individual, it's hard to say, because it's the administrators almost take care of a larger number of people without seeing them day to day.
Do you think, with the GPs now taking over the commissioning of the work that's done in hospitals and so on, do you think that the GPs should offer to open their surgeries to more convenient hours locally, Saturdays and Sundays, for example?
I think that's definitely something that GPs should look into. I think there's a lot of people that struggle to access their local doctors because of the essentially work opening times of doctors' surgeries. I think it's for somebody who works, say, 9 o'clock till 6 o'clock in the evening, it's quite hard for them to get themselves an appointment at a set time.
And what about dentists?
Dentists, I think dentists, you sort of, unless you have a severe problem with your teeth, then you kind of book in 6 months in advance anyway. So that is something that you can tend to build into your working life.
Now, you live in Marsden. Where's your local dentist?
Linthwaite.
Oh, that's handy.
Well, I mean, there is. I'm not sure. I think the dentist in Marsden's actually closed now.
Yes.
But even when that was open, my local dentist was still in Linthwaite, which is sort of a backlog of people trying to get dentists in their local areas, with the rising population and the falling numbers of local dentists, how are they going to cope with that increasing demand?
It's interesting you should say the rising population, because that gives me an exceptionally good link to my next story. I noticed that there are plans to develop Lower Blackup Farm near Cleckheaton and changing these precious green fields into a housing estate. Okay? Why are so many of our greenfield sites being placed under such threat?
I can't answer for that. I can only say that to me it seems strange when we've got such a large number of buildings standing empty in town centres, big buildings as well, that these aren't the areas that they're choosing to redevelop, that the sort of the areas that they seem to be wanting to stick big numbers of housing is in areas where there's very little housing. And my experiences of it is there's not as much thought that should go into the planning of redeveloping these greenfield sites as there should be. I know in Marsden that one of the new housing estates, well, one of the newer ones, just off Cars Road, that was built on a site that had water feeding into it, and now that they've built houses and laid tarmac onto that land, that water is now feeding out further down the hill and feeding out onto Manchester Road.
Correct.
Which at the moment it's just sort of building up, but as it goes on into the winter, if that spills out onto Manchester Road and then is frozen, then that's an ice slick right across an extremely busy road. And that's because of the development of a house on a site where, to my mind, there wasn't enough pre-thought put into it before it was built.
I suspect it'll come as no surprise to you to know that that sort of thing happens all over the borough.
I can imagine that it does, to be honest, yeah.
Do you think that's the fault of the council or the developer himself?
I think the developer is always going to look for the way that they are going to make the most money, and I think it's more of a responsibility of the council to think not just when the housing estate is built, but the effect that it could have 10 years after the housing estate has been built, because there's so many different things that go into the ecology of a greenfield site that once you change that ecology, it spills out into the areas surrounding it.
Okay. Have you noticed that the weather's been very unsettled this week?
I have, yeah.
Do you think winter's coming early to Kirklees this year?
I think it's got colder than it did last year, sooner.
Well, I do remember that Remembrance Day last year was a particularly mild day because it was on the Sunday and we were all marching up and down in Greenhead Park. Yeah. We're going to take a break now. I'm David Ridgway. This is Kirklees Local TV's Weekly Wind-Up. KLTV can always be contacted on info@kirkleeslocaltv.com and on Twitter @KirkleesLocalTV. Welcome back. My name's David Ridgway and this is Kirklees Local TV's Weekly Wind-Up. I'm now joined by my special guest, Kevin Gresham. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you.
Kevin's come all the way across from Dewsbury at very short notice in order to help us with the programme today to talk about the bedroom tax. Now then, Kevin, first of all, can I ask, how old are you?
I'm 60.
60, so you're roughly my age.
Near enough.
Right, okay. And I understand that your situation is very specific. Very specific. Are you married?
I am indeed, sir, yes.
And what's your wife's name again?
My wife's Anne.
Anne, okay. And I understand your wife is disabled.
Yes, she is disabled. Yes, she has bilateral sciatica, acute arthritis in all her joints. She's also diabetic and asthmatic.
Right. I've just started off with osteoarthritis and I feel really quite fit in comparison to what you just described. Mm-hmm. I understand that for some years now that you've been in the situation of having given up work to look after Anne.
I stopped working February last year to become Anne's full-time carer.
Right. And when you gave up work, what were you doing?
I was a bus driver, 8.5 years as a bus driver in and around Kirklees and Leeds.
Right, so you gave up work to look after Anne.
Yeah.
But apart from that, you also told me earlier on that you want to improve your situation by taking a post-grad degree?
No, I applied to Kirklees College to do a foundation degree in computing.
Right, okay.
The degree was in network and systems, and my idea behind it was that I qualify as a remote control service engineer, so that I could then hack into customers' computers. Sorry, legally hack.
Well, that's a
permission.
very interesting turn of phrase, hacking.
With the internet, I could repair a computer 5,000-6,000 miles away, as if it was on the table next to me.
Okay. Now, you told me earlier on, Kevin, that if you study, that you'd lose your benefits. But if you continue to work for Arriva in some form, mm-hmm. you'll be able to retain your benefits. How does that work?
I don't know the understanding behind this. As a student, I am not allowed to be a carer. However, if I was to work for Arriva on a part-time basis, 21 hours a week, I can still be a carer. As a full-time student at Kirklees, I was out at college for 6 hours a day, 2 days a week, which meant that I was actually 12 hours in a week. But that's not allowed as a student, but as an employee, I can do a part-time job and work up to 21 hours a week anywhere else.
That can't be right.
I agree with you entirely, David. It's not right. My intention was to qualify and become a remote control engineer so that I could come off the benefit system completely and contribute to the public purse rather than being a draw on it,
right,
while still looking after my wife full-time. Okay. And I could earn a good wage, but still my primary concern has to be my wife's welfare, obviously.
That's very commendable and quite right too. Now, what is the bedroom tax?
A bedroom tax is, in my opinion, an immoral tax put on by the coalition government that nobody elected to claw back some monies that they need to draw back. We understand that the world is in a mess. This country's in a mess as well, and unfortunately the government has to try to recover through austerity the problems. The bedroom tax, housing benefit is a massive draw on the benefits system. The idea is that we are charged 14% of our rent because I have a bedroom that, according to the government, I'm not entitled to.
Now, my understanding is, and do forgive me if I've got this wrong, but this is only affecting people who are on benefit.
Yeah. If you're not in receipt of housing benefit, then the bedroom tax, or its proper name is the under occupancy charge, does not apply.
The under occupancy, what's it a name?
Oh yeah, indeed.
What's the situation in the private sector of rented housing?
Still the same. Housing benefit is paid either directly to the landlord or to the tenant to be forwarded onto the landlord, but there's still the reduction of 14% for one bedroom, and I think it's 26% if you have two bedrooms.
Okay. Tell me why the situation is specific for you, Kevin.
Just short of 2 years ago, we were assessed by a council occupational therapist who came to see us in our previous address and saw my wife climbing upstairs on her hands and knees to get to the toilet because she couldn't cope with the steps. The occupational therapist said that we needed a ground floor level access flat. She then asked about our circumstances and about Anne's particular needs. Anne has bilateral sciatica, which was followed by a break when she fell down some stairs 40 years ago.
Right.
She also suffers, because of the sciatica, she cannot exercise. At times, Anne is in so much pain with her back and her knees that even if I turn over in bed, it's like being stabbed, and so I have to sleep sometimes we have a camping cot in our spare bedroom. It's a camping bed that I sleep on when Anne is when Anne has spasms.
Right.
We also have medical equipment that, because the flat is so small, Anne sometimes has a good day when she can walk using a walking frame. That has to be stored somewhere. There are other bits and pieces of equipment that we need to store. The kitchen is so small that we have to put our fridges in the spare bedroom because we can't get a fridge into the kitchen. At the moment, I'm getting a thing called discretionary housing payment, which is a small pot of money that has been given to councils by central government so that they can help people out on a short term.
How short is short?
Well, I got it for 2 months.
And you've presumably virtually gone through that now?
That runs out on the 27th of December.
Happy Christmas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bang in the middle of the Christmas holidays where I cannot go back to the council. So I've already spoken to the council and arranged to apply for it at the beginning of December so that it overlaps, so that there's no break in it. We're actually on the point of being evicted because of arrears due to the bedroom tax.
So sorry, if I could just ask, has there been any sort of effort to sort of reassess the situation in terms of attempting to find you a new, more suitable flat, or a flat that wouldn't incur the bedroom tax for yourselves?
It wouldn't work because we need the second bedroom in order for me not to have to cause Anne pain. Believe me, we've been married 41 years. I don't want to sleep in a separate bed from my wife because, that's not what we are.
No, quite understand.
Some people choose to sleep apart. Fine, that's their choice. Our choice is to sleep in a double bed.
Following on from Kyle's question, you have no right of appeal?
You can appeal against a housing benefit decision.
But this isn't the housing
benefit. But this is something totally separate. The appeals that have been made to council for the bedroom tax have got into court and been told by the judges that they have it to pay, so virtually being thrown out. Now, I always thought in British law that no matter what I did, I had the right to appeal. I can appeal against a parking ticket if I think it's wrong. If I'm convicted of murder, I can appeal against the sentence. But I cannot appeal against the government taking £9.44 out of my benefits.
Right, before we're going to take a break, Kyle, you've heard the discussion I've had with Kevin. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, to me, I think it's sort of a sad state of affairs, really. I think people, when you start talking about austerity and budget cuts and things like that, people in government and the people looking at figures tend to start seeing people as figures. They don't see the individual, and they're not really that interested in looking at individual cases. And it seems to me a sad state of affairs that people who should be looking after the most vulnerable people are sort of ignoring them on the basis that they are part of a statistic. And that seems to me something that, since this sort of conservative-led austerity has been happening, it's been spreading out, and a lot more people are just being seen as statistics rather than as people.
Indeed, yeah.
Do you feel, Carl, that when the cuts which the council are going to be obliged to bring into all of our lives here locally in Kirklees, do you think that's going to make the matter much, much worse?
I think it's not going to make things better, certainly. I think there's things that could be done, that could be, you know, incentives to sort of boost the economy really and help us get out of the situation in the way that you could employ people within councils to specifically go out and look at individual cases.
Yeah.
That is making new jobs. I mean, obviously there is going to have to be cuts within councils and within government, but there has to be some incentive to get the economy going again and get people working again. And I think one of the ways that central government can do that is by employing people to look at specific cases, especially like Kevin's,
Transfer appeals,
people like that. And exactly, when people want to appeal, there is someone that they can talk to who can then look at their case individually.
Right, so. Well, Kevin, you've told us that you are that you've had a stay of execution, if you like, until April. What will your next move be?
My next move now would be to, I think that this legislation is wrong. In British law, every British law, there's the right of appeal. So my next process is to contact a solicitor and to look at the possibility of actually appealing against the government to change the law itself, because the legislation around bedroom tax is immoral.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a break now. I'm David Ridgway. This is Kirklees Local Television's Weekly Wind-Up. Kirklees Local Television can always be found on info@kirkleeslocaltelevision.com and on Twitter @KirkleesLocalTV. Welcome back. I'm David Ridgway. This is Kirklees Local TV's Weekly Wind-Up. This Sunday is Remembrance Day. Remembrance Sunday. And I know that many people will be attending Remembrance Day parades. I'll be at Slathwaite Parish Church on Sunday morning. The Prime Minister has said that it's his hope that every child of school age will have the opportunity to visit northern France and see the graves, the battlefields and the museums at some stage.
Again,
Sorry?
We're not invading again, are we?
Very good. No. But I don't know if any of the local schools have yet signed up for this programme. And of course, don't forget, there's a concert in the town hall on Sunday evening with Joe McElderry.
Joe McElderry, well, obviously. Yeah.
Right. And I was also very disappointed to read that Santa's Grotto in the Huddersfield Market Hall will not be opening this year. What a shame.
Disgusting.
Right.
Absolutely.
Now, tell me this. If the council's seen fit to cut Santa's Grotto in the Market Hall, do you think the Festival of Light should also come under threat for cancellation?
I think the Festival of Light is something that draws people in from a much wider area than a Santa's Grotto, really, and has something a much wider effect for the town centre than something like a Santa's Grotto.
And before we close, I've got 4 quick items. Firstly, did either of you read about the young lady burglar, your neck of the woods this, who left her socks at the scene of the crime?
No. Socks?
It was actually hanging Heaton, a little bit up the road.
Oh, a little bit up from me. No.
There's the story about a sneak thief who was found guilty last week and actually sent to jail. And the defence lawyer did actually say that somebody could have picked up her socks outside and taken them into the home of Jimmy Burger. But yeah, quite so. Secondly, a lot of talk about the HS2. HS2?
HS2?
Yeah. No? Fast train?
Oh, right, yes, the direct link.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Why is it taking so long to build? Will it bring any benefits to our local people, or will it be just a white elephant? Kyle?
I think the benefits will be not particularly great, to be honest with you. I think that it's sort of it'll benefit people going in the other direction rather than people coming in this direction.
London?
Yeah, in a big lorry with furniture in it. Personally, David, I think the HS2 is a complete waste of time.
Okay.
Why do we need a fast train when we can connect via Skype and other connectivity services when we don't have to travel?
I think as well the services that we have at the moment are not, even locally, they're not particularly well run, and there's delays a lot of the time, and especially with the trains and with the buses, there's buses that miss. So why not spend money getting those services in order before we try to start building new ones?
The people who know me know that I'm a big fan of the Victorians, and the thing which gripes with me about this is that if the Victorians were still running Britain, HS2 would have been built by now.
Yeah, but it would have been steam, so it might have been slower.
Thirdly, have you had your flu jab?
No.
I haven't, no.
Well, if you're over 65 and you've 5 years to go,
I'm okay.
You can get your flu jab for free. And I've seen that Jason McCartney's had his, but he'll have had to pay for his because, of course, he's only still yet a young man. And lastly, I'm delighted that the Association of Town Criers has marked their annual competition and their annual dinner by presenting the Keys restaurant with a plaque which now adorns their wall. So well done, the Keys restaurant. Please send your comments and tips. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you know. You can contact us on info@kirkleestv.com and on Twitter @KirkleesLocalTV. Thank you to my guests Kyle and Kevin. Short notice, Kevin.
No problem.
I hope you've enjoyed the experience of being with us today.
I have.
I'm David Ridgway. You've been watching Kirklees TV's Weekly Wind-Up. You can contact Kirklees Local TV on info@kirkleeslocaltv.com and on Twitter @KirkleesLocalTV. Goodbye and thanks for watching.